All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to be unpacking how some of the wildest, most bizarre internet folklore actually bridges the gap to high-level theoretical physics. We're looking at one of the absolute most fascinating concepts out there, in both science fiction and actual, hard science. Yet we're talking about time travel. And more specifically, we're going to explore this truly mind-bending intersection between the crazy stories people love to tell and the strict, completely unyielding mathematical laws that govern our universe.
Have we already been visited by time travelers? Seriously, think about that for a second. Human history is just absolutely littered with bizarre, totally unsolved claims of people who simply do not seem to belong in our timeline. I mean, we've all had that weird moment of déjà vu, or maybe you've seen an old grainy photograph that just feels a little bit too modern, right? It sends that weird chill down your spine. It's totally human nature to look for anomalies, and over the years, countless stories have surfaced about individuals just stepping out of the shadows with anachronistic technology, impossible knowledge, or backgrounds that completely defy reality itself. But, are these just urban legends born out of our collective imagination, or could they actually represent a fundamental glitch in the fabric of space and time?
Let's start with a classic. Picture this. It's July 1954, and a well-dressed man steps off a plane at Haneda Airport in Tokyo. He hands over a perfectly normal-looking passport, complete with official customs stamps from all over Europe, including previous visits to Japan. But here is the catch. His passport was issued by a country called Tured. When customs officials, who are obviously utterly confused at this point, asked him to point out his country on a map, he confidently pointed to the area right between France and Spain, which is the real-world location of Andorra. And he was actually irritated by this. He claimed he had never even heard of Andorra, and that Tured had existed for over 1,000 years. So authorities detained him in a high-floor hotel room, they confiscated his documents, they posted armed guards right outside the only door to the room, but when they opened that door the next morning, he had completely vanished. Just poof, gone. No trace of him remained. The windows were locked from the inside, there was no balcony, and, incredibly, all his confiscated documents locked away in the airport security room vanished right along with him. It was literally as if he just slipped right back out of our reality.
Which brings us to Section 1, Legends of Time Travel, and some of the bizarre claims from the internet age.
Because the truth is, the man from Tured is definitely not an isolated case. Our culture is kind of obsessed with searching for anomalies, looking for any little sign that the timeline has been breached. Take Chaplin's Time Traveler, for example. This stems from some bonus footage on a 1928 Charlie Chaplin DVD, where a woman appears to be walking by, talking into what looks exactly like a modern cell phone. Then you have the famous 1941 time-traveling hipster. This is a real photograph of a bridge reopening in British Columbia, and right in the middle is a guy wearing remarkably modern wraparound sunglasses and a printed sweater, casually holding a compact camera in a crowd of people wearing top hats and 1940 suits. And moving into the digital age, we have the whole bizarre saga of John Titor, this internet message board user from the early 2000s who claimed to be a military time traveler from the year 2036, sent back to retrieve some legacy computer equipment. Now sure, many of these are pretty easily debunked. The 1928 cell phone was probably just an early, bulky hearing aid, and the hipster's clothes were technically available at the time. But still, it shows our deep, persistent desire to find these cracks in time.
But then you get the cases that just completely boggle the mind. Take Andrew Carlson. According to the legend, Carlson was suddenly arrested for SEC violations after he allegedly turned a meager $800 investment into an astonishing $350 million. How? Through 126 consecutive, incredibly high-risk stock trades, where he literally never lost a single time. We're talking about a statistical impossibility here. When interrogated by authorities, he supposedly offered a simple, deadpan explanation for his impossible luck. He told them he was a time traveler from 200 years in the future who just happened to have the historical records of the stock market memorized. And much like the man from Tured, he supposedly vanished without a single trace after a mysterious, unidentified benefactor posted his bail.
Let's move into Section 2, the logical nightmares, or why physics absolutely hates a paradox.
So, let's think about this. If the man from Tured or Andrew Carlson were actual time travelers, actively moving through our history, changing outcomes, making hundreds of millions of dollars, why didn't their actions just unravel the entire universe? Well, this brings us to the two major logical nightmares of time travel. On one side, we have the consistency paradox, which is most famously known as the grandfather paradox. This involves directly changing the past. And on the flip side, we have the causal loop, sometimes called the bootstrap paradox. This involves creating information or objects entirely out of thin air. Imagine a time traveler going back to give a young William Shakespeare a completed copy of Hamlet. Shakespeare publishes it, which means he never actually wrote it himself. But the traveler only got the copy because Shakespeare published it in the first place. So the play has no true origin, it just exists. These two paradoxes are the ultimate mind-bending hurdles to the very concept of moving backward in time. Let's zero in on the most destructive of the two. It's the ultimate contradiction, right? If a time traveler goes back and kills their grandfather before one of their parents is conceived, the time traveler is never born. But if the time traveler is never born, they simply cannot travel back in time to kill their grandfather. Therefore, the grandfather lives, the traveler is born, the traveler goes back in time, and this cycle of impossibility just repeats forever. Any change to the past creates a mathematical and logical impossibility that completely breaks the chain of cause and effect. It suggests a universe that fundamentally just cannot exist.
So how does the universe handle that? That brings us to Section 3, The Universe Fights Back, featuring our mathematical bouncers.
To solve this logical nightmare, we have to look at the real heavy hitters of theoretical physics. They essentially act as the universe's bouncers, making sure the timeline doesn't just tear itself to shreds. One of the foremost bouncers here is the Novikov self-consistency principle. Russian physicist Igor Novikov mathematically proposed in the 1980s that you simply cannot create a paradox, period. It's not that it's just really hard to do, it's that the universe actively enforces self-consistency. According to his principle, the probability of any event occurring that would change the past or create a paradox is exactly zero. Think about what that actually means. Under this principle, history is entirely rigid. If you travel back in time, anything you do is already part of history to begin with. You can't change the past. You can only fulfill it. You are just a passenger in a pre-written story.
To really put this to the test, physicist Joseph Polensky came up with a brilliant thought experiment designed specifically to try and break Novikov's rule. It's known as Polensky's paradox, and it feels like a truly unsolvable trap. Imagine a billiard table. You fire a billiard ball into a time-traveling wormhole. The ball is aimed perfectly so that it exits the wormhole in the past, rolls across the table, and collides with its younger self, knocking it completely off course. Because it gets knocked off course, it never enters the wormhole in the first place. Boom. It is a perfect, purely mechanical grandfather paradox, totally free from messy human psychology or choices. So how could the universe possibly resolve this?
Well, two physics students at Caltech, Fernando Echeverria and Gunnar Klinkhammer, working with the legendary Kip Thorne, actually found a mind-bending mathematical solution. The universe always forces a correction. Instead of knocking the ball completely away and causing a paradox, the older ball exits the wormhole at a slightly different angle and delivers just a glancing blow to his younger self, and this gentle little strike alters the younger ball's trajectory by the exact, precise degree required for it to enter the wormhole, travel back in time, and deliver that exact same glancing blow. The universe literally self-corrects to seamlessly fulfill the causal loop without ever breaking causality. I mean, how crazy is that?
But, you know, some physicists don't even want to leave room for glancing blows or clever little workarounds. Stephen Hawking went even further, with his chronology protection conjecture, emphatically stating that the laws of physics simply do not allow the appearance of closed time-like curves. And a closed time-like curve is really just the strict scientific term for a time machine. Hawking firmly believed the universe has a built-in, aggressive defense mechanism against time travel, specifically to, as he put it, keep history safe for historians.
Hawking backed this stance up with some really intense mathematics, specifically a concept called the back reaction. His equation showed that if you tried to create a time machine, or a closed time loop, quantum vacuum fluctuations would travel through the loop, piling up on themselves infinitely. Think of it exactly like microphone feedback at a concert. A tiny sound loops through a microphone into a speaker, gets picked up again, and gets louder and louder and louder in a fraction of a second until it blows the amp. The expectation value of energy in a time loop would grow massively large, resulting in a spike of infinite energy. Basically, the universe literally blows up the doorway before you could ever even step through it.
So, what does this all mean for us? It means in a time-traveling universe governed by self-consistency, physics completely overrides human free will to prevent a paradox. As astrophysicist J. Craig Wheeler noted, you might furiously will yourself to change an event, but physical circumstances will simply dictate that you fail. The gun unexpectedly jams, a sudden gust of wind moves the bullet, or almost comically, you simply slip on a banana peel at the exact crucial moment. Your free will is entirely restricted by the laws of physics. Just as your free will to jump up and fly like a bird is currently restricted by gravity, your free will to change history is restricted by causality.
But is there a way out? Let's look at Section 4, the multiverse escape hatch and escaping the timeline.
If changing the past is totally forbidden by energy spikes, glancing blows, and quantum banana peels, how could a man from Taured ever exist without breaking our universe? Modern theories suggest we might avoid paradoxes entirely through a couple of massive conceptual shifts. First, there's the idea of reversing entropy. If time isn't a linear road but just a thermodynamic artifact, then time travel is really just reconfiguring local space to a prior entropic state. It's kind of like unmixing the cream from your coffee. You aren't really moving backward through some mystical dimension of time. You're just mathematically rearranging the present molecules back to how they were. But the far more popular escape hatch? That would be the interacting many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In a many worlds reality, every single decision, every quantum event branches off into a mutually exclusive universe. If you travel back in time, you aren't actually moving backward on your own timeline. You're actually sliding sideways into a completely different parallel timeline. In this new universe, you can change whatever you want because your original timeline remains completely unchanged and unbothered back home. This is the ultimate light bulb moment for our urban legends. It neatly explains why someone from a non-existent country like Taured could accidentally slip into our world. He didn't travel through time, he slipped through a seam in the multiverse, landing in a reality where his country was simply called Andorra.
So I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. If the laws of physics mathematically erase paradoxes, destroy time machines with infinite feedback loops of energy, and perhaps force us into entirely alternate realities just to preserve causality, is changing the past just an impossible human fantasy? Does the universe actively protect our history, or are we simply trapped in a single, unyielding timeline, forever looking for an escape hatch? It's a profound mystery, one that bridges the fun urban legends of our internet age directly to the chalkboards of our greatest physicists. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the reality around you.